iron in their soul. What's up, YouTube? This is Iron in the Soul. Back today with another very important message. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share this video, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about my content. In addition to that, please feel free to follow me also over on Instagram at The King Jabez. It will be greatly appreciated. I want to talk about, in today's video, a very important subject matter, and that is the current drug crisis in the hip-hop game and the spiritual meaning of 666. The current drug crisis in the hip-hop game and the spiritual meaning of 666. This is something that, or better way of articulating this is a subject that I have covered pretty consistently over the last 3 years. And that is my perspective on the hip-hop game, as well as what the Word of God has to say. And there are so many people who are bothered by, in their minds, someone like me speaking on something as demonic, as evil, as ungodly as hip-hop. The truth is, yes, there is a lot of demonic aspects to hip-hop. There are a lot of ungodly teachings in hip-hop. There are a lot of principles that are not lined up with the Word of God. You got me. However, there are a lot that do line up with the Word of God, such as justice, speaking up for the unheard, giving people a space to express their pain. There are so many good things that I can say about hip-hop. So if I was to actually one day sit down and make a list of all the evil in hip-hop, I would have a pretty long list. You're right. We can't lie about that. Talking about the dead, the glorification of murder, the glorification of sexual sin, and possibly 15, 20 other subject matters that are not really healthy for any community. But if I was to be honest and make another list of the positive, there will be a lot of things I could say too. The speaking up for those who should be fathers, sharing one's history, giving people strength, speaking up against injustice, the evil of the community, the evil of the power structure system, really just giving a very special place for people, all types of people, Black, white, Hispanic, men and women, to really share their life stories and to give strength to other people. This is an unspoken power or superpower that hip hop has. It gives a lot of people strength. We're talking athletes, we're talking working people. There are a lot of people who listen to hip hop going to work, working out, before a sports event, when they're going through a hard time. And a lot of these men and women are very highly intelligent people, college graduates. And if they're not college graduates, they clearly have the ability to do that if they wanted to. So with that being said, it's a kind of a foundational introduction. Gangsta Boo. Gangsta Boo is a part of the rap group, or was a part rather, of the legendary rap group 3 6 Mafia. 3 6 Mafia, a group from Memphis, very popular in hip-hop game. And as a person who is aware of hip-hop and has made hip-hop songs and know the sound, understand the culture and the history behind that, they laid a pretty solid brick in the hip-hop empire. You can even tell some of the current artists today the influence of 3 6 Mafia. I would say even with Glorilla, who's very popular nationwide right now in hip-hop game, you can clearly see the influence of 3 6 Mafia, Project Pat, and others in her beat selection, her flow, her style. Nothing against her, by the way. But you can clearly see the influence of this group with her style and how she raps. And, even her popular song, F and F, you can clearly hear a kind of a, in my opinion at least, as a person who knows hip-hop, a Project Pat undertone. But that's neither here nor there. That's not really the purpose of this video. Gangsta Boo was someone who I knew a lot about just from growing up. If any of you guys like me who played high school football in the 90s or early 2000s, the 3 6 Mafia was a very popular sound in the locker room. Any of you guys who play sports, if you played basketball, if you played football, if you were on a wrestling team, if you were one of the boys in the locker room, there was a good chance from time to time you heard some 3 6 Mafia songs before a game, during practice, after practice. in a car with one of your homies. They were a very popular group within the neighborhood. And so I knew about Gangsta Boo from the group, but I never really heard her speak as I did recently with her Drink Champ interview, which is about 2 hours long. I listened to about an hour of it. I plan to listen to another hour sometime either today or tomorrow. I want to listen to the whole interview to show respect to her life. Rest in peace. And, you know, just from listening to her talk, it's one thing to hear somebody rap. When you're able to get a person's raw emotion, when they can really kind of just let their hair down and say what they feel, what they may not say in a regular conversation with another individual. But it's something else to hear a person sit down and really just talk and be vulnerable, share their heart. Having a heart-to-heart conversation with a human can be very powerful. You can learn a lot about that person. This is one reason why I particularly love autobiographies. I've read a lot of them. This is one of my favorite subject matters to read when I'm reading books. It's like sitting down, having a conversation with this person. I think about the autobiography of Malcolm X, which I've mentioned several times. And reading that, it was like sitting down, having a real solid, long 2-3 hour heart-to-heart conversation with Malcolm X. So in hearing this Drink Champs interview, it was really having a heart-to-heart with Gangsta Boo. And seeing how, my opinion, how intelligent she really is, or was. She died, rest in peace, how intelligent she was. Granted, Gangsta Boo was, ghetto. She's from the ghetto, and that's okay. I'm definitely not saying she's some saint. She was wild. She was rough around the edges and whatnot. But I could tell she really had a good heart, though. Just listen to her talk. And it gave me a different opinion about her. And seeing that there was a kindness there. You can see that Southern upbringing. She had a father. You can kind of see that she grew up with brothers, which is one reason why she was able to survive in a group full of guys. And really kind of broke my heart to see how drugs took her from this earth so young. She was 43 years of age. And so she kind of reminds you of one of your aunties you would have, right? Everyone has an auntie kind of similar to Gangsta Boo. That kind of loud, has you laughing, has a good heart, but will tell you what she thinks, don't mind telling you off. We all kind of have an auntie like that, at least one. And so it kind of reminds you of an auntie, And it was like sit down and have a conversation with one of your aunties from the South. I have a lot. I guess it's endearing to me because I have a number of aunties from the South. A lot of my family, if you guys don't know, is from Mississippi, Brandon, Mississippi, to be exact. So I have a lot of country relatives. And so I kind of saw some of her mannerisms and her way of talking and some of my aunties. So it kind of tugged on those heartstrings of mine because of that, obviously, that type of connection. And, just to see her perspective on a lot of subjects. She was very intelligent in terms of race relations, how she dealt with that, the current hip hop game, her respect for those who are actually good at it versus those who, may not be as good. Understand the bricks she laid within the hip hop empire. What she did, I have to give her flowers with that. In terms of a female MC, she was good at rap. Doesn't mean I have to agree with all the lyrical content, which I didn't, obviously. But in terms of rap itself and delivery, style, flow, beat selection, voice tone, she knew how to rap in that context. And so there was no doubt about that. And she had an influence on a lot of female rappers in terms of that. And very highly respected in her hometown of Memphis. Gangsta Boo was found dead at her friend's home in Memphis, in her hometown, on the first day of 2023. Very rough way to start off the year for the hip-hop community. It was sad to see that. And whenever someone dies in the hip-hop community, there's always the speculation online, and I'm sure probably already videos up saying she was a sacrifice and whatnot. And I don't know about all that. I don't think that's the case every time someone dies. The Bible says it clearly. It's appointed to man once to die, and after this, the judgment. And so, granted, that's a possibility, and that is a reality within the music industry, and not just music, just overall, the entertainment, actors, athletes. That is a reality. I understand that, and I've talked about that before in the past. And I'm not here to say that's what it is today. I'm not going to get into that. I'm sure there's probably already videos on YouTube with probably 20 guys saying, "Oh, this is a sacrifice for blah blah blah," and I won't go that route. And if they go that route, that's their choice, whatever. What I'm talking about is what actually happened. And as far as what I've researched so far, it was regarding drugs. And I can believe this because this is something that's close to my heart. And that's because my mother also passed away from a drug overdose. And she was in her early 50s, right? And this happened, um, I think next month will be 7 years, right? Because this happened right before my son was born. My son will be 7 in May. And so that's something that still hurts me to this day. There are times when, Brother Iron and Soul, I'll shed tears even now when I think about my mother. It hurts my heart. Even during the holiday times, I'll be honest, it bothered me this year a little bit. When I'm sitting down having breakfast or lunch or dinner with my family, it does bother me. It does bother Brother Iron. I'm a human. It bothers me. It hurts me that I can't have dinner with my mother anymore. That bothers me. It would be nice for my mother to be able to come up here to my home that I work so hard to get, and to have dinner with her son, his wife, and my 3 children. That bothers me. And this, my brother, my sister, is what drugs does to our community. Not just the hip hop community, but the family, the home. And this is a problem not just in the black community. This is an American problem. And that is another benefit of hip hop, is that hip hop will force you to see the ugly side of life in America. No fantasy. Everything's not great. It's not always a dream. Sometimes it's a nightmare. And I like that's something that Brother Nas pointed out very clearly in some of his early albums in the 90s. He would say things like, America, this is your country. We're going to force you to see what's really going on out here. You did this. Okay? I'm going to hold you accountable. And the drugs is something that really destroys a lot of family. And I'm seeing it. And, drugs has always been a problem in the music industry, not just in the hip hop world. This happens with rock and roll, rock stars, R&B singers, actors. Drugs have always been a problem in that pop culture, right? Nothing new. But it seems to me that it seems to be happening more frequently now and younger. That's what I seem to be seeing now. A lot of young people are dying because of drug overdose. I saw a reel over on 600 Breezy. 600 Breezy is a popular rapper from Chicago. And I saw one of his last reels on his IG page. And the whole reel is him just partying and high out of his mind. You know what I mean? And it kind of bothered me. I'll be honest. It kind of bothered me to see him looking like that. He's too young for that, in my opinion. This is me speaking now. And I'm seeing this agenda, this future of the game, right? We think about the rapper Future. There's kind of a hidden message there. What is the future? The future is people out here high out of their minds, being controlled by women, right? And not really standing in a masculine base as men, being led by lower natures, being led by sexual desire. There's some of you guys, bro, you could be big and bad with other men, and you get around a woman, and you cannot stand in your masculine frame. I have seen it with my own eyes. As tough as you are, you get around that female, and you won't admit this because it's hard to say this, and I don't think you even think of it this way. But if we're truly honest, a lot of you guys, you kind of worship women. You think about women more than it was ever designed by you to do so by the Most High God. Now, granted, God created the woman for the man. Okay, this is why God created Eve. I'm not talking about from a human perspective. I'm talking about from a Bible perspective, from the biblical Old Testament account, the creation of Eve. Why was the woman created? She was created to help the man, to bring the man companionship, friendship. She was a joy to him. She was a part of him. She came from his rib. So the woman is a part of you. You're supposed to have a woman, in my opinion. Now, I've told you guys, I want you guys to get married. A lot of you guys don't want to hear that. You want to just have sex with women and treat them any kind of way. I'm not with that. I'm with either being celibate and being on retention, or making a decision to find you a wife, be a man, and to be committed to one woman, right? I'm for being committed to one woman, not this having a harem. You don't need 5, 10 girlfriends, sleeping with all these women, creating all these soul ties, constantly scrolling, looking at women's body parts all day. I'm not going to be vulgar. We're going to be classy with this. constantly scrolling, looking at women's body parts all day, and filling your mind with that to a point where you worship the woman body, and it becomes a form of idolatry. This is the future. This is what we're seeing. And that leads to weakness in men. That leads to, in many cases, drug addiction. And this is what happened with Gangsta Boo. Very unfortunate. And a lot of people in the hip hop community have spoken on this in her passing. Boosie has spoken on it very recently. He's been very outspoken always, but last year Boosie's always talking. Boosie's always talking about something, right? Or either on Twitter or IG or with DJ Vlad. He talks about on DJ Vlad's show more than anybody. And he's talked about this recently, just how this crisis with people fentanyl and people ODing and dying at a young age and how bad it is. There was another rapper who was very young who also passed away from drug overdose. Another rapper down in Memphis, a rapper by the name of Big Scar, also passed away from a drug overdose. I believe it was prescription pain pills or some type of pills. I don't know if it was pain pills or not, but overdose on pills. Died recently, also from Memphis. And there's been a lot of going on in Memphis with the hip hop game. I'm not sure what's going on down there. You know, you guys have heard me talk about the Marine Kingdom demons and how they operate from the waters and how they infiltrate cities and their manifestations of that tend to be sexual sins, violence, murder, death. And these are the signs of the last days. And so this young man also passed away from drug overdose. Big Scar was a young man, 22 years of age, and I think he got the nickname because he was in a car accident. Correct me if I'm wrong. He had left a huge scar on his body. He had been shot. And so this young man really had been through it at a young age. And again, this is, once again, the beauty of hip-hop, being able to hear all these stories and the reality of life in these cities. It's a harsh reality in Memphis, Chicago, New York City, over in Florida, certain cities. You know, we go to the West Coast and LA, you know, just the reality of life in these communities for these human beings. And that's the beauty of hip-hop, is being able to hear these stories. Not so much the glorification of the crime elements, but the reality of the pain. And Rod Wave, I think is a rapper's name, is very popular with this current generation. I'll talk to a lot of young people who really like his music, how he expresses his pain, articulates that. And that kind of is a heartbeat of this young culture. See, a lot of these young people, you know, they're not just wanting to party every day just to party. A lot of them are in pain. And this is something that, if we call it, I consider myself an OG at this point, and you guys do too. As an OG, this is what I see. I see a lot of hurting young people that are depressed, that are suicidal. You know, that's what I see. I look past just the turning up and popping pills and kicking it. There's something more going on here. There's a spiritual war going on with the young generation. You guys right now are in a very real battle. Satan is targeting you. That's what I see as an OG. And also as a Christian person, as a leader, as a person who has a prophet spirit from God. You young men and women are under attack. And the devil is trying to kill you. I want to say it flat out. He's trying to kill you guys. Okay? I'm going to be I'm going to be blunt. He's trying to kill you through sex, through sexual diseases, through drugs. Yes, I said what I said. I ain't scared of you, devil. I said what I said. I said that. I'm not scared of you. He wants to kill you. So, you know, I want to caution you against this stuff, guys, ladies. You know, if you're struggling with depression, you know, talk to a psychologist, talk to a therapist, go to counseling, talk to a pastor, read a book, pray, work out, find other coping mechanisms, right? The drugs seems to be a very convenient coping mechanism for a lot of people. It happened to my mother, happened to Gangsta Boo, it happened to Big Scar, happened to Juice WRLD. We can go down a list of all these rappers who have died from drugs. I mean, we could talk about DMX, Juice WRLD, Mac Miller, you know, so many others. And I can't call all the names right now, you know, who passed away. Shock G, you know what I mean, for legendary from the Digital Underground back in the days. So we're talking OGs as well as the young generation. You know, whether you're an OG like DMX or a young man like Lil Peep or, you know, Juice WRLD. They were very young. Big Scar, you know. Gangsta Boo, 43 is young. That's young to leave the earth, by the way. That's not young to some of you guys who are 23, but in terms of your lifespan, that's a young age to leave the earth. That's not the plan of the Most High God for you to leave that young, right? We should be here with God's grace, right, and with good health. And granted, if no tragedy comes our way, such as war or something like that, with the grace of God, we could really realistically look at being on this earth 70 to 80 years, right? Scripture talks about that. And that's something we should think about. In Psalms 90 and verse 10, this is me, this brother, I'm taking you back to the book. This iron. I'm going to take you from the hip hop game to the black community, right back to the book. Let's go to the book. In Psalms 90 and verse 10, we're talking about our lifespan. And the Bible refers to something called 70. A score refers to 20 years, and of course, 10 years. And so 70 is 60, and plus 10 is 70. So we could look at realistically having a lifespan of about 70 to 80 years. That's based on, of course, your lifestyle, where you live, your country, your diet, and a lot of other factors. But you get my point. With the grace of God and with good decisions and with safety, granted, no tragedy comes our way or near-death situations or a death assignment from hell, if we escape all of that, because that is real, by the way. There is a such thing as curses, death assignments, spells from witches and warlocks. That's very real. Okay, I want you to understand that. That's why prayer is so important. That's why I tell you guys you should be praying every day. You understand? But with all that in mind, with the grace of God and the help of the angels, we could be here 70 or 80 years. That's my prayer. That's what I want to be. I want to be here at least 70 or 80 years, if not longer. I want to enjoy my full lifespan. I don't want to leave here early because of drugs. Brother Iron, you know me, I lead by example. I have not used any drugs like that since 2002. The last time I smoked weed or anything like that or drunk any alcohol was 20 years ago. And I hesitate because I have taken pain pills from time to time, not abused them, for purpose of actually pain or headache, something like that, but never in excess, never to get high. I have not got high or, been drunk in 20 years. So when I speak, I try to lead by example. I don't try to speak on just something without doing it first. I like to lead by example. To me, that's what leadership's all about. And I'm not saying it to boast. I'm saying it to be an example. By the grace of God, I have not done any of those things in 20 years. And this is why my body is healthy. As a man in my late 30s, I still have a six-pack, still in relatively good shape. I can walk several miles. I can walk 3 to 5 miles. You guys have been tracking me on the gram. I'm sometimes logging in 10,000, 15,000 steps a day. I'm in really good shape for my age, right? And so I like to value my health because the way I see it, your body is your temple. It is the temple of God. And so I want to take care of my vessel in a way that can keep me here to help my family, to help serve God's purpose for my life, and to be a blessing to you. I can't do any of that if I'm high out my mind, right? If I'm drunk, if I'm sickly. And so I want to be healthy so that I can be helpful to this world. Now that I've said all of that, let's now transition to a part of the name of 36 Mafia. 36, of course, stands for 666, right? And as much as I like their sound and beat and the aggression that they brought to hip hop, it reminds me of my days of playing high school football and whatnot in my youth. I have to be honest, there's a very dark side to this group. They talk about burning Bibles, drawing sixes in their foreheads, animal sacrifice. This is type of stuff they're mentioning in their songs. If you listen to their songs intelligently as the CDs, they're mentioning these things. And so what is the spiritual meaning behind the letter 666? This teaching is found, of course, in the book of Revelation. And we see in Revelation 13, and in verse 18, it says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. For it is the number of man, and the number is 666, which means 666. Now we see this number with 36 Mafia. We've seen Rick Ross. We've seen a lot of hip hop artists mention this number. And the reality is there is a lot of Satanism within the hip hop game. I have to admit that as much as I like the sound and the culture and the good aspects of it, there is a very satanic aspect to hip hop that cannot be denied. I had to be truthful as a prophet of God, right? And so, during these last days, when this happens, there will be a form of a world currency one world currency and an allegiance to the Antichrist. And this is found in several verses of Revelation 13, 16 through 18, 13, 16 through 17, 14, 9, 14, 11, 15, 2, 16 to 19, 20, and 20 verse 4. As you can see, I've studied this before. Okay, I'm a theology graduate. And so I've studied this very thoroughly. And I plan to read through this book for the month of January. Kind of a deep book to begin your year with, right? But I want to begin here because, I think we are in the last days. And so of all the books in the Bible I could begin my year reading, 2023, I chose Revelation. And because we need revelation in these last days, right? We need guidance. We need to know what time it is. And we are living in a very demonic, satanic world. And it is your responsibility, my responsibility to understand that and to govern ourselves accordingly. People think the 666 is the mark of the beast. But the truth is, if you study this carefully, 666 and the mark of the beast are two separate things, right? The mark of the beast is something you'll have to have or, branded on you in the last days to buy, to sell, to survive, to buy food, to go to a grocery store, to get, gas for your vehicle, whatever the case may be, whenever this happens. And the Antichrist, who will reveal himself, that's something that's separate from the mark itself. The 666 is referred to the number of this Antichrist/beast. And he is someone who will be this one world leader who will be overseeing the entire earth. And, we're talking about prophecy in the last days. We're talking about eschatology, the return of Christ, the 7-year tribulation period, the battle of Armageddon, a lot of end time prophecies. And I won't get into all of that today. That's another teaching in itself. And I won't dive into all that. That requires a separate, possibly half an hour to hour teaching of eschatology is what it means, end time study. And so we're talking about eschatology now in terms of the Antichrist, 666, mark of the beast. It's something that we see that's very common within the hip hop community. Now, we talk about biblical numerology. Various numbers have spiritual meanings to them, such as 40, 7, 3, 70, and 12. Various numbers in the Bible. I talked about that before. In fact, I think I have a video on my channel, if I'm not mistaken. I do have a video where I talk about biblical numerology. So I encourage you to go watch that video for more context. So I won't get into all of that. But briefly, in terms of this, 7 is referred to as the number of God or perfection. And then we have 6 is the number of man. So 7 is the number of God and 6 is the number of man. And so the Antichrist will be the ultimate man or want to be like God. He will be the ultimate ruler over the world, one world, satanic world. And 3 6s refers to his effort to be like God. It's that simple. So just you have the Holy Trinity, God, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. In this case, you have 3 6s referring to his desire to be like God, to oppose God, but he will clearly fall short, which is why the number is 6 as opposed to 7. That's really that simple. So during the tribulation period, every person will be required to take the mark of the beast, which is for the purpose of buying, selling, and essentially having your everyday life. That is separate from the number 666. During the tribulation period, every person will be required to take the, not necessarily the number 666, but the mark of the beast, which will be a way of branding a person to receive, to buy, to sell, and to live their lives. That is distinct from the number itself, which refers to the number of the Antichrist. So once again, to make this very clear, 6 is referred to as the number of man. Man worked 6 days and took the 7th day off. In the Old Testament, a Hebrew slave was only to be kept as a slave for 6 years, and he was to be set free in the 7th year. We also see another passage when it refers to sowing in a field or working in a field for 6 years and letting it rest on the 7th. And so we see a consistent pattern here in the context of man, with the number 6, man also being created on the 6th day, right? This is all significant. God doesn't do anything by mistake. And so the beast or the Antichrist, number being 6, this is essentially saying man's last attempt at ruling the earth prior to the rule of Christ on earth. I believe that Jesus Christ, Yeshua, the Messiah, will rule on earth for 1,000 years. In the Antichrist, this will be man's last attempt at ruling God's earth, and it will not work in the long run. So that's, guys, I know you wanted some really deep meaning. That's basically it, guys. That's it. 666. Number of man, Trinity, 3 sixes. And this is the quote unquote ultimate man's final attempt, last hoorah, basically, at ruling God's creation, God's people, the earth. And it would ultimately fall short of God, whose number is 7, which is number of completion, perfection, and a number of God. So 7 being a number for God and 6 being a number for man. And this is why the Antichrist / beast number is referred to as 666 in Revelation 13.